We all have these wonderful dreams, and often they're impossible dreams. For example, a young kid on a trampoline dreams about becoming an Olympic gymnast, but you find you have special talent, magical talent, and you keep pursuing this dream. Your family supports you, the coaches support you, you devote thousands of hours just for that one day to own the podium. Your parents sacrificed so much. And then you come to the realization that maybe that dream's not possible. Maybe you're extraordinary at your craft, but you're not quite the best of the world. What would you do?
I feel like I'm missing out on life. My passion for gymnastics is not as strong as it was before, but I knew the Olympics were just like really not in the picture.
I think a lot of people would fall back on their feet. They might go into a tailspin because that's what they put their entire youth towards. Where my guest today is someone that didn't fall back on her feet. In fact, she strapped on a pair of skis and became one of the most extraordinary aerial skiers in the world.
Like all of a sudden, everyone's watching, and you have like this old Olympic side with the rings everywhere, and you just feel like it's your time to shine.
And I had a chance to meet with her in the past and chat with her on stage, and I said to her, you must become part of Chatter That Matters, because your story inspired me, and I know it'll inspire many others. Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Thank you for listening to Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast. And ratings and reviews, well, they're always welcome and they're always appreciated. So I'd like to welcome Marion Thénault to Chatter That Matters. Marion, good to see you again.
Very good to see you. How are you?
Fantastic. Talk to me a little bit. Let's go back in time and just when you first discovered the gym, before we can get you on a pair of skis, what were you like as a young kid, and why were you different than any other kid that just where parents park them in an afternoon just to try to burn off some steam?
I mean, both my parents were athletes, so I was destined to do sports, that's for sure. They put me in gymnastics when I was very young. I don't really remember the beginning. I just remember gymnastics being part of my life. I was a very disciplined young kid. I was a people pleaser. I always wanted to listen to the rules and have people congratulate me for being a good little girl. So I think that fit with gymnastics, which of course requires a lot of discipline.
Did you ever rebel? Did you ever get a time where your friends in school have a very different life than you? Because I have to believe that as you continue to progress in that sport, it took more and more of your time. You know, as a child, sometimes it's tough to rationalize that kind of commitment when there's so many other places to explore.
That came way later, like when I was in high school, more towards the end of my high school. Because before that, I was not interested in any other activities than gymnastics, really. I thought it was the coolest thing to do. So I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. But when I grew up and I was like 15, 16, now I started to feel like I was missing out on social life, really.
As you're going through this, as you're getting older, do you find that you have to more often not hang out with other athletes that understand this level of commitment?
I feel like I have a very different perspective on life than many of the people I hang out with, just because I grew up in that environment of just really being disciplined and hardworking and towards being very goal-oriented. Of course, I evolved as I got older and as I became a skier, for sure. But I do feel that difference with a lot of people, especially in school. It's different backgrounds from everywhere. And I do see that I have this strong motivation, fire, some people would say, that I think not everybody necessarily has or has yet.
Going off topic, and I'm going to get back to your story, but it's fascinating. Do you ever feel you have to curtail your motivation and your ambition and this commitment with others because it's so different than the other people in the room? So for me to fit in, I got to sort of take Marion Thénault 2 notches down versus sort of the speed you like to operate at?
All the time. I mean, not a lot of people know the real Marion because it's a lot to take in. So I think in my daily life, I don't really talk about what my goals are or what I'm aiming to do in all my projects. It's very necessary. I mean, I need to talk about it to the people that are key in my life and that are going to help me towards these goals. But I just also like to hang out with people without being this super intense girl.
I want to wrap up gymnastics and really get into this massive change you did, but you were incredibly accomplished at Weir. How far did you get in that sport, and what did you excel in when you were doing gymnastics?
I was okay at gymnastics, but really not that great compared to Olympic level. It wasn't that big of a deal when I realized that first, because again, I was just so involved in gymnastics that I was like, I'm going to keep doing it anyway, and I'm just going to have to reach my full potential, whatever that is. But I knew pretty early on that the Olympics were just like really not in the picture.
So it wasn't the podium that motivated you, just the love for the sport.
Yeah, and just getting used to always trying hard. It's kind of addictive, always chasing goals. It can become unhealthy, but still it was the main driver.
And the trampoline was something that you really excelled in.
In gymnastics, trampoline is a separate discipline when you get older. So I did it really for fun, just because my mom knew more people in that sport, and she gave me the opportunity to go train with a very good coach. I saw that I had a lot more potential in trampoline, and I could not do both. Like, it was insane. I would train from 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. in the morning in gymnastics. I would go to school, and then after school, I would do like a 5 to 8 of trampoline, which was not sustainable, even for a high energy kid. So I had to choose at some point, and I kept gymnastics because it's what I've been doing for so much longer.
So a lot of people probably aren't aware of RBC Training Ground. Take us to what it is and how you ended up there. And because of RBC Training Ground and your drive and your athletic ability, I'm now talking to a gold medalist.
I just received an email inviting me to RBC Training Ground. I had no idea what it was. It was the end of my high school, and I was a bit in a place of, okay, I feel like I'm missing out on life. As we said earlier, my passion for gymnastics is not as strong as it was before. I feel like I need to branch out, but I cannot go from like training 30 hours a week in gymnastics to nothing. So that's why I went. I mean, RBC Training Ground is physical testings, and there are recruiters of different sports that are there, and they look at you and they say in what sports you would have potential. So I went without any expectation. I was like, who would want a gymnast? In my head, I was just a very good acrobat, but I didn't know really where that could apply. And yeah, there was this freestyle skier coach that was there, and he came to see me. He said like, oh, you're a gymnast, you're a good acrobat, you should come and try freestyle skiing, aerial skiing. At first, I just told him, well, I'm not a skier, so I think that's a problem. And he was like, no, like, come and try it. I think curiosity is the main reason why I went, because I barely knew what aerials was. Like, I had to Google aerial skiing after meeting him because I was not sure.
And how old are you at this time?
I was 17 years old.
Okay, so 17, you're trying to figure out what he's actually asking you to come out and try out.
Yeah, I was pretty confused. And then I Googled it, and I saw, like, of course, Olympic level skiers doing these crazy flips. And I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to do that. But then again, I was curious, and I was like, he's not going to make me do these flips first day, so I should be safe. And so I went a few weeks later in Lac Beauport. There's a water ramp facility. It's like there's the big jumps and you land in the water. A playground for acrobats. Basically, you have these huge jumps. People are going so high, like 10, 12 meters in the air. They're coming in super fast into these jumps that literally look like walls when you look at them for the first time. And then there's the trampolines and the bungees, and there's music, and the atmosphere is just insane. I was like, oh my God, this is a whole new world, and I was not aware.
Everything you just described, I'd be scared of. What was it like that first day? What did they get you to do?
I mean, they got me on trampoline first to see how good of an acrobat I was. And then I had to put on skis and, of course, start with the smallest jump possible. I mean, you can barely call it a jump, but it's tricky. Like, you have to be able to ski on that plastic surface. And me, like, I had skied maybe, 3, 4, 5 times in my life. But again, it was kind of a challenge. And I got to the water, my first jump. And then I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. I want to do it better, and then go again. It was just very fun at the beginning, and it didn't take long before I was, okay, this could be my new gymnastics.
But you accelerated so quickly. I mean, you went from being on skis 4 times in your life to being quite accomplished.
So I had trained a couple times on the water ramp, and by the end of the summer, I told my new coach, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm going to commit to aerials, and I'm switching sports. So I'm from Sherbrooke. I had to move where the mountains were. So I first moved to the Laurentians, and I had to learn how to ski first. So I had a private ski coach, and I skied like a couple times a week. And on the trampoline with my aerials coach, I would work on the new technique, because I mean, I have an acrobat brain, but still the technique is different from gymnastics to aerials. You know, I was a complete beginner in the sport, but I was training like a high-level athlete. It must have looked pretty funny, because I was like learning the basics, but with like very high intensity and being very rigorous and very methodical in my training. So I think that contributed to me getting good pretty fast. I was very lucky that my coach at the time, Remy, saw potential in me, and he gave me all the tools possible to succeed. So then I started training with the national team. Then, first year on snow, doing my first backflips on snow, which was very fun, moving up to bigger jumps. And then it went very fast. I became Canadian champion. Then the year after, NORAM champion. The year after, I won my first World Cup. And the year after, I was Olympic medalist.
You know, you just rolled that off. Like the first day I hit a golf ball, the next day I sunk a putt. I mean, you won the Canadian championship in your first year. How did that feel, knowing that, quite honestly, it wasn't that long ago that you showed up at training ground, not even understanding what, that you're suddenly now realizing, looking in the mirror, saying, I have the potential to be the best in the world?
I think my coach saw it in me before I did. During my first year, we sat down after training, and he opened his laptop, and it was like this Excel spreadsheet of everything I needed to do in the next seasons in order to qualify for Beijing 2022. And at that time, we're in 2018, and I just did my first backflip on snow. So I was like, are you sure? Of course, it's not going to be easy, but you're motivated, you're hardworking. I'm going to give you the tools you need, and we're going to do this together.
How important is it to have someone that believes in you, not just with a pat on the back, but actually puts that Excel sheet out and saying, if you follow this path, you've got a shot at it?
It was essential to my success in the first years, for sure, because I was totally new to this sport. Like, I knew nothing. I had everything to learn. So if it was not for him, I would not be where I am today. I developed that confidence with time, and I developed my own mentality towards my own sport. Now I think I've matured a lot as an athlete. But in the first years, I needed that person to guide me through all the steps, and being on also like bigger sites with people that I looked at that I thought were amazing, and I was going to compete against them. And I just felt like a baby. I felt like a kid or like a rookie everywhere I was going. Nobody knew me. Then I would compete against them, and I would do very well.
How did it feel to land that first backflip on snow?
When I was at the top of the course, like before turning my skis, it was terrifying. I was really questioning, what am I doing here? But yeah, and then I turned my skis, and when I was like sliding down, all the training we do on the rudder rim kind of kicks in, and autopilot kicks in, and it's like, you know what to do. So I just kind of let it happen. And then I landed on my skis, and then it was just one of the best feelings, you know. I've been lucky to experience that feeling a lot more times after in my career, but I think that is one of the best feelings in the world.
Do you find yourself always chasing that feeling again? Is it ever going to be the same as that first time, or is it each time as good as the first time?
Oh no, each time is as good, because each time is different. You know, I'm not talking about like training jumps, like some training jumps now, and the feeling is just pretty normal. But like either doing a trick for the first time, doing a new like kicker for the first time, or landing a jump in competition when it matters a lot, when the pressure is on, that feeling is absolutely amazing.
How did your teammates first treat you? Because obviously you're taking some time away from their access to jumps, and they're wondering how, you know, they hadn't seen you their entire life, and next thing you know, you're showing up and I mean, did they embrace you immediately, or did it take a while for them to realize you deserved to be there as much as they did?
A bit of both. I've made some great friendships with these people, and most of the time they were very nice and welcoming. But of course, I think at some points there can be like jealousy too, because I'm just like showing up and taking the spots and making the teams. I've created bonds with people around me that were stronger than that, and we like developed relationships that were like actual friendships that were not depending on how well we perform. I created bonds that are incredible, and that's what matters.
At Beijing, your first Olympics, I mean, your parents must have been so proud. I mean, family of athletes, realizing that your dream hadn't ended in age 17, that you're moving on. What was it like to represent Canada and kind of carry on your shoulders everything your parents had sacrificed to get you to this point?
You can, talk about the Olympics all you want. Nothing can prepare you to be at the Olympics and actually perform there. It was also very stressful. I knew that it was going to be stressful, but I did not imagine how bad it would be, because it's not about yourself at this point. You're representing your country. You have been through this selection process. So you kind of feel like you have to perform. It's a very strange feeling, especially because I didn't have a lot of experience too. It's kind of a running gag in my family, because when I was younger, I would compete in gymnastics competitions and I would be very nervous. And my dad would be like, "Don't worry, Marion, it's not the Olympics." But then when I was at the Olympics, I was like, "Dad, it is the Olympics."
I feel for your dad. I'm a dad. That was my line. That's supposed to calm you down.
Yeah, it did not work that time.
And scores are coming in for Marion Thénault, Team Canada. And we have a new leader, Marion Thénault.
And Marion's story is really one of the many coming out of this program. And these athletes, they need dedication, commitment. They, of course, need the skill and athleticism, and they need funding.
You've just heard a few words from Jackie Ryan. She's the CEO of Canada's Olympic Foundation. Someone I admire. I consider one of Canada's best marketers. And she's going to join the show later to shed more light on RBC Training Ground and why it matters not only to the athletes, but to all of us. Coming up next, Marion talks about how she dealt with the circumstances of seeing her entire world crash, literally and emotionally, and her journey back to the top.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman, host of Chatter That Matters. A big shout out to RBC for RBC Training Ground. Each year, thousands of Canadians are tested, and those with Olympic potential are provided the resources they need to chase their podium dreams. Find out more at rbctrainingground.ca. Owning the podium matters to our athletes, to Canadians, and to RBC.
I will forever see my sport differently. I've always knew it was a dangerous sport and that it's an extreme sport. But at the same time, I proved to myself so many things that I didn't think I had in me. I'm going to carry that baggage as something very positive.
Today, my special guest is Canadian Olympic medalist Marion Thénault. Asked has she ever been on skis, she's now a world champion. More importantly, she's got a plan after her days on the slopes. And that's a plan that involves being in a constant conversation with nature. I mean, you win a medal at the Olympics, you continue to have success, but at the start of the 2023-24 season, you suffer a terrible injury. Take us back to that moment.
So after Beijing, great results, and then I keep training, and then the year after in competition, I was really among the best in the world. With my coach, we decided we want to move on to bigger tricks. So in aerials in my sport, there's 2 jumps you can do in competition, like 2 kickers. There's a double where you can do double backflips, and there's a triple where you can do triple backflips. At that point, all my career, I had competing doubles, 3 twists, and 2 flips. And it's good, and I can make a career out of it. But the best women are doing triples. because triples, you have to come in faster. You come in between 60 and 70 kilometers an hour. You're going higher, 12 meter plus in the air. The risk is just more there, and there's more impact too. So that's why not all the women decide to do that switch. Right now in the world, we're more or less 10 women that decide to do triples. And then so last season, so we were in December 2023, it was going to be the first time I do triples on snow. And it went pretty well. And within the aerials community, it's kind of a big deal when a new woman just goes on the triple. Because for men, it's pretty standard. In the World Cup, everybody's up there. But for women, it's more rare.
And do the other people in the group high-five you and congratulate you?
Oh, yeah. Everybody understands what it is to stand at the top and stare at that jump and go for it. So we have huge respect for one another when we do new tricks or when we overcome big hurdles. There was a lot of hype around that. And then there was the first World Cup of the season where I decided to compete doubles still because my triples were not ready. So I compete doubles. I win the World Cup. I was on a high, really. And then the week after, I go back to training triples, and that's when I crash. I don't remember what happened. I lost consciousness. I lost memory of the event. I just woke up at the bottom of the hill, being a bit confused, not knowing what happened. I had sharp pain in my neck, in my back. I just made sure that everything was moving. I was able to move my fingers and my toes, and I was like, okay, I'm fine. I can move everything. I was carried to the hospital, and they did all the scans and everything. And I actually got very lucky. I didn't have anything that was permanent. I fell basically on my stomach, but I whiplashed to my face. So I scorpioned the whole landing zone, which explained all the pain I had in my spine. So I had nerve compression and I had bone bruising on my vertebrae.
I would say the vast majority of people listening to this would say, so please tell me you've quit the sport. What was the recovery like? And when did you even begin to think that recovery might include you getting back on skis?
At first, I was just really focused on feeling better because initially it was really not fun. I was not autonomous in everything I was doing and I needed help and I was not mobile. So that was I had my physios and I had my mom came to help me out and I had my coaches and all these people did not talk about jumping for a while and they just helped me get better. Again, I'm very disciplined in what I do. So when we give me exercises and say, this is how you're going to recover, I was very good at doing them consistently. So my body actually recovered way quicker than I thought. I mean, by beginning of January, I was able to be in the gym.
Just so I have context, the beginning of January, when was the injury?
December 4th was my crash. So 1 month later.
I have to believe that if you'd overheard doctors whispering, they probably wouldn't have put that down as a prediction that you'd be in the gym a month later.
Oh, I think my recovery went so well. So by mid-January, I was cleared to go do aerials, but my body was, not my mind, because I was so focused on getting better that I kind of just didn't really think about it. I was not convinced, to say the least. So I went back on the air side, and the first day there, it was very traumatizing. All the cells in my body wanted to run away from that air side. I had this very deep feeling that I did not want to be there. And I saw my teammates jumping and I looked at them thinking they are absolutely crazy. It was a very weird feeling. A few days later, put on my skis and started jumping. Very basic jumps.
I don't care if it was a kid's bunny hill. I mean, it must have been just so tough to strap on those skis. We're talking about weeks since that accident. So what was it like?
My first jump was January 17th. So a month and a half almost to the day after my crash. I was very reticent. I didn't want to go, but at the same time, I needed to in order to just tell my body, hey, you're fine. You're healthy. I still had a little bit of pain, but it was nothing compared to what I had before. By jumping, it got better. It's like, there's like the saying, like, you get hungrier as you eat. Well, it's a little bit like that. Like, I did my first jump and then it was a little bit better. So then I went and do doubles. All that process was very messy. Like, I was crying every single training. I don't know why. It was just like, I had to get it out. And my coach was just so, so nice. Like, he never told me like, oh, stop crying. Like, why are you crying or anything like that? He was just there and he waited for me to get better. And it was always this discussion. He like never forced me to do anything. And we were taking the decisions together on how I was going to get back to jumping. And then it was Canadian Championships a week and a half after I came back and I competed. And that's the first time I felt like a little bit of a flame inside of like, oh, maybe I want to do this. Like, this is a little bit fun. First time I felt it. So I won nationals with a jump that like I had no idea I had in me at that point. But that little fire in me kind of came back and I did an amazing jump. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. I have it in me. Like, it's deep, but it's there.
Sounds like physically you're there. Mentally, are you at a point where actually this injury is it neutral? Has it helped you? Or is it always going to be a bit of a parachute on you? Or is it just that was yesterday and here's today?
I cannot ignore it. I will forever see my sport differently. I've always knew it was a dangerous sport and that it's an extreme sport. But at the same time, like later in my process, I proved to myself so many things that I didn't think I had in me, that I think I'm going to carry that baggage as something very positive. After I started to compete again, like in end of February, I went back on the triple and I did the jump on which I injured myself, which was like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but also the thing I'm most proud of. And after that moment, I was like, okay, I can do a lot more than I thought I could. So I think I'm carrying this feeling of like, I know I'm capable of doing a lot of things, but at the same time, I'm carrying this other feeling of your health is very fragile as well. So it's kind of a balance between these both feelings of like, I'm powerful, I'm capable, and I want to be still careful.
And how are you feeling about this season? And obviously the 2026 Olympics coming.
I feel good about it. I mean, I've had a very good summer of training. I've done a lot of triples. I've done hard jumps, like among the hardest jumps that women do right now. And I've competed and it's been very good. I've been first and second at the competitions we did this summer. This season is Olympic qualifiers and there's World Championships. So it's a big season. It's going to be also the season I'm going to compete triples for the first time, which will be a big deal. I feel good, but also I'm not going in this season blindly thinking it's going to be great and all rainbows and sunshines. Like, I know it's going to be hard and that I'm going to have a lot of mental hurdles to go through. But I'm excited because I found that love for my sport again.
And Marion, while I have you, I also want to talk a bit about these other chords that play in this incredible human being that you are. One of them is your passion for sustainability. Why don't we start there? And the fact you're not only trying to reduce your footstep, you're actually trying to raise awareness for your entire sport that we can do better. We can compete, we can enjoy the sport, but at the same time, we can be kinder to our planet. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing.
Like, sustainability was important to me for sure, but I didn't know that much about it. I knew the concept and it resonated with me, but I was a little clueless on how I could integrate it to my athlete's career. So I reached out to WSP, which is an engineering firm, and they agreed to partner with me. We calculate my carbon footprint year after year, and we see as an athlete, how can I reduce it? So I started to want to make that project bigger, reach out to federations like the International Federation, my national federation, to use the data I'm collecting with professionals, with scientists at WSP, and use that data to make better decisions on how can we have a more efficient calendar that make us travel less, maybe, for example, or how can we help them in their journey to being more sustainable with the data that I'm collecting. So kind of seeing it as a partnership. And I've also started to get more involved in more the advocacy part. Because of course, the more I've got involved, the more I learned. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to share that information and the more opportunities I got. So I'm now a member of the Athlete Alliance of Protect Our Winters, which is a national organization that is advocating for better laws and better policies around environmental protection. There needs to be an advocate for sustainability in all departments and all fields of life. So I'm kind of that person for my sport, for our events. We see directly the impacts of climate change on our sport. In the mountains, with the snow coverage, with the artificial snow, with the rainy conditions in the winter, it could not be more obvious to us. And it feels like it's my responsibility.
I'd almost want to end there, but I can't because for some reason you find also the time to study aerospace engineering.
I also had this interest for space. I think what's compelling about it is the international collaboration that it brings, the global challenges that it brings, but also it's kind of like related to mystery. And there was something about it that I really liked. I've almost done half of my bachelor's now. And I think that balance is so important to me. I love my sport. I love all my side projects, and I think they make me a more complete person. But then the goal is always to not do too much because then I get burnt out. So kind of like learn where my limit is, and the limit can be very different for many different people. But where is my limit? What fills my cup? What empties my cup? What activities are complementary? Navigating all of that.
How do you manage to survive? I mean, because all of this, education, training, travel, it all costs money.
My first sponsor was RBC because they recruited me. So I was in the RBC Future Olympian program and then joined the RBC Olympian program. They really funded the beginning of my career, and now they still fund me as I'm more established. So I'm very grateful for that. Then WSP is another of my sponsor. We have this project together and it's amazing what we're doing. And I'm very excited about it. And I'm just so proud of the partnership we have. And then I also have CAE, who build the flight simulators. That's also very exciting. And I have an internship with them. Makes me take my place in the professional world and see how it is. I'm so, so grateful.
Now, Marion, I want to end by saying I'm so grateful that you're a Canadian and you're competing for Canada and you've got so much to offer the world. I always end with my 3 takeaways. And the first one is you're so magnetic that people truly believe in you. And you're so gracious in thanking your parents and the medical staff and your coaches and your teammates. I think it's a great lesson in life for people to realize it does take a village, but it's important we always thank the village. The second one is just these hunches or curiosity that you chase. I'm not quite sure what aerospace was, or I didn't really know what that meant, but I'm going to go find out and I'm going to learn more about it, or I'm going to try jumping, even though I've only been on skis 4 or 5 times. And I think if we all approach life that way, sometimes opportunity knocks on the slightest little knock, or it knocks in a way you want to ignore it because it doesn't make sense. But just opening the door and walking through it, some days you can get on a path like you were on. And then the other one is just, when I asked how you do it, your real answer was, well, it makes me complete. And I think that's another wonderful lesson in life. Instead of talking about balance in life, understand what feeds your soul, what makes your heart beat, what makes your eyes shine, what makes you get up. And even when you were a kid, spend the mornings doing gymnastics and the afternoons doing trampoline. It was about making you complete as opposed to how society might judge somebody. So really wonderful lessons in life from such a young and accomplished Canadian. So proud you're on Chatter That Matters. And I can't wait to air this episode because I think as people start watching you and will realize there's so much more to that triple than just sheer determination. Inside it, there's an aerospace engineer and a sustainability and somebody that's really at peace with who they are. So thank you for joining me in Chatter That Matters.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really been a pleasure.
Joining me today is Jackie Ryan. She's the CEO of Canadian Olympic Foundation. As well, she's the Chief Brand and Commercial Officer for the Canadian Olympic Committee. Jackie's one of the most respected and highly regarded executives in sport. Jackie, thank you for finding the time to join me on Chatter That Matters.
Well, gosh, thank you, Tony, for having me. Looking forward to the chat today and just love being here.
Listen, I'm such a fan of what you're doing. And I was thinking about this interview, and you have got to have one of the most rewarding jobs in Canada, because instead of just throwing things into the cloud, you actually see young Canadians compete, chase their dreams, and very often on the podium.
You know, it's incredibly rewarding. I worked for an organization that's ultimately anchored in driving impact for Team Canada athletes, while also striving to inspire the next generation of Canadians. And so it's quite a privilege. It's also a privilege to partner with leading Canadian companies and business leaders like RBC.
So my guest this week is Marion Thénault. I was so impressed with this young lady in terms of not only her desire to be the best in the world in sports, but just the way she approaches life, sustainability. What a phenomenal Canadian. And I thought that I'd have you on to talk about Training Ground.
RBC Training Ground is a nationwide Olympic talent search program, also a funding program. And it's a really important program for the broader sports system and really helping these athletes pursue their Olympic dreams. It's entering into its 10th year. And Marion's story is really one of the many coming out of this program. And these athletes, they need dedication, commitment. They, of course, need the skill and athleticism, and they need funding. And there are so many stories in addition to Marion's, including Kelsey Mitchell, trap cycling, gold in Tokyo, Jerome Blake, silver in Tokyo, gold in Paris in the 4x100, Adelon Wesley's rowing, gold in Tokyo, silver in Paris. The list is really, really long. It's also about inspiring the next generation of Team Canada athletes and helping them work towards their dreams. And I really think the success of these athletes on the podium really just inspires Team Canada fans across the country as well.
It's wonderful once every 4 years to celebrate these Olympians competing, but there's 4 years to go into it. It takes a village to win a medal. And I would argue now more than anything else, it matters that we have a Team Canada and we're showing Canadians that our identity is woven across this country in so many different ways, but also in the ways of the Olympians.
RBC's commitment to Team Canada, actually the story goes back 78 years ago in 1947, that literally the president of the Canadian Olympic Committee at the time called over to the president of RBC and said, "We can't get the team to the games. Can you help us out?" And that's what started the relationship. And it just hasn't stopped. And it's really, really quite a story. And anchor their sponsorship in the RBC Training Ground that we've talked about. They also have the Legacy RBC Olympians program, which has helped hundreds of current and retired Olympians in their athletic careers and also in life after sport, which is a whole another area that's really important. So we're fortunate because we're not for profit. I don't know if you know that. So the Canadian Olympic Committee is a not-for-profit organization. Of those funds that come in, 70% of them go right back into the sports system. They're funding national sport organizations. They're funding On the Podium. They're funding the entire Olympic athlete journey.
How hard is it to convince a corporation that these dollars matter more than just even moving market share, that they actually matter in terms of the psychology of our country, the pride and the identity of our country, that, you know, it might not attach to their brand and might attach to the brand, but to me, it's even bigger than a brand story, isn't it?
You know, this investment coming from our corporate partners drives meaningful and direct impact. And I think a really good example of that is thinking back to COVID, and many organizations were having to look at their financial situation. And I can tell you that every single one of our marketing partners stuck with Team Canada. Not one left. They stuck with us. They renewed their investment in us. And from that came incredible success in Tokyo, Beijing, and in Paris this last summer. So ultimately, it works because our values are aligned. Our marketing partners are dedicated to supporting Team Canada, the Olympic movement, and they are because of the role that Team Canada plays in instilling national pride, as you mentioned, and because the impact of their investment, it's direct.
You know, Jackie, I've known you for a long time. Your passion never diminishes, your energy. I can understand now how they've given you 2 titles, both the foundation and the Chief Brand Officer of the Canadian Olympics. I'm sure they're thinking about a 3rd one right now. I just really appreciate you taking the time and joining me in Chatter That Matters. I hope you listen to the show with Marion. She holds you and the training ground in the highest of regards. So I think that's a testament to money well spent.
Thank you, Tony. Really appreciate the opportunity and big fan of Chatter That Matters. So happy to participate today.
Once again, a special thanks to RBC for supporting Chatter That Matters. It's Tony Chapman. Thanks for listening, and let's chat soon.